Hey guys, Metal Jesus here, and I'm back again with Radical Reggie.
What's up, bro? And today we are doing a buying guide on the Game Boy Advance system.
And you are, of course, the perfect guy because most of this really weird stuff right here is yours.
Yeah, but we're going to be talking about quite a few things for the system.
That's right. We're going to cover the main systems itself. We're going to talk about some of the clone systems, accessories, and of course, we got to talk about some games.
Let's get into it.
So when it comes to the four main Game Boy Advances, you really need to know that there's four specific models.
Right.
And we're going to start with the original right here, which was non-backlit, non-front-lit, non-anything really.
Yeah, you still needed the old school worm light, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But even so, this model was very comfortable on the hands. You know,
very much so.
Very well put together system.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, ergonomically, it's really comfortable to play even today. And yeah, it's just you know, when it came out, it was the natural progression of the original Game Boy and the Game Boy Color, right?
Yeah, and not only that, you know, Game Boy is finally a 32-bit system, which a lot of people don't know.
Yeah, I know. And so we're going to show that in some of the games because they are more impressive than maybe you even remember. Now, from there, they went to the SP.
Yes.
And this is my original SP. This is when I jumped in.
Wow, it's still well put together,
man.
It is,
well, because I take care of my stuff.
Right on, right on.
But I've got thousands of hours on this. And this is when I didn't own an original Game Boy or Game Boy Color.
Right.
I jumped in on this.
Okay.
And I absolutely loved it. As you can see, it's a clamshell. That was the really big thing here.
Right, right.
So, you know, it protects the screen, which is really nice. And this is front lit. So essentially you can see it in the dark.
Right, and one thing with that system I remember is that they took the headphone jack out.
Yeah, I know, it's funny, yeah, because I was very annoyed with that. Because again, I was riding the bus, I was, you know, playing this, you know, on my breaks and during lunches, and I wanted to have headphones, and the headphone jack's not there. I was so annoyed. But the other thing that they did is that they had an internal battery.
Yes.
So you didn't have to put, you know, AA's or AAA's in there. It was actually pretty cool.
Yeah,
it was rechargeable.
Just charge it up. Yep, exactly.
Yeah. But the screen wasn't great. And so they could do better.
Yes.
And so what they came out with, which is this one here. So this is the 101, and we're putting on the screen here the different model numbers so you know which one to get. Side by side, it's a huge difference.
Yes.
It's a huge difference. And there's a reason why people want to find these today, because it's a little bit more compact.
It is. It is. It looks more professional, I would say. You know, kind of looks like a mini laptop kind of in a way.
It totally does.
Yeah,
That's pretty funny. Yeah, absolutely. You can type in on it.
But let me ask you this. When we're going over system, like, which one do you usually prefer to play on?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because while I love the SP, and I have, like I said, thousands of hours on it, the original is so much more comfortable.
Yeah, because I got big hands, so I usually prefer that one.
Yeah.
But.
And so that kind of leads into sort of today in which you can get, because while you and I and a lot of people actually prefer the design of the original, that lack of light on the screen sucks.
Yeah, it really does.
And so what you see here is two of the systems that I have that are actually modded. So they basically have, you know, a backlit screen added to the original one, plus, you know, some fancy skins, which are kind of neat. But that's the way I prefer to play it by far.
Now, to also let you guys know, you can play the Game Boy Advance games on other systems and the DS system, if you guys remember this.
It was so smart that Nintendo did this because it brought to this new platform thousands of games.
Yeah, and it was like the first time they did backwards compatibility.
Yeah, you know, they did it well. I mean, it's actually pretty cool.
This system has a better screen than the regular DS, so the games will look a lot better on the DS Lite if you played on that system.
Yeah, that's true. Now you may notice that I have a couple other Game Boy Advances here that look a little weird, right? And that's because in the years that have come out since then, modders go crazy with this.
Right.
I think it's a bit of a challenge because, you know, they love the form factor, but they want to pack as much into it as possible. And this one is completely modded to the T. So basically, this is a website that modded this many years ago, retromodding.com, where they replaced the speaker amp in here, so it's much louder.
Wow, okay, that's important too.
Yeah, the screen is obviously upgraded, plus it has actual glass on it, so it's more scratch resistant.
Okay.
It has a variable speed setting in here, so if you want to speed up or slow down games, you can.
Oh, that's perfect for like all that dialogue and tutorials and being you can't skip on some games.
Or like RPGs that are grind heavy, you can just like blow through them.
Okay, cool.
And they added a rechargeable battery back here.
Okay. Awesome.
Really nice. And so this is an example of kind of like where you can go. And also obviously the shell is a replacement.
Yep.
And then I just want to mention, because again, people go even further than that, this is a Raspberry Pi. So this is a little mini computer in here that runs emulation. So you can actually play not only Game Boy Advance games in here, Atari games, Super Nintendo games, PlayStation games.
I was actually playing Dino Crisis on the Game Boy Advance the other day. So that was
fantastic.
It does. I was like, wow, dude, unbelievable, dude. That's freaking awesome.
Yeah. And again, the reason why they do that is because it's such an engineering challenge to try to cram all of that in here.
Yeah.
But man, this is really neat.
Definitely.
The other thing I want to mention that looks a little peculiar here is this MetalJesusRocks themed consoleized version of the original Game Boy Advance.
Right.
So obviously most people aren't going to do this, but there's a lot of people out there that take the original internals of the Game Boy Advance and do HDMI out. And as you see here, you can also plug in a Super Nintendo controller to it. So it's a consoleized version of that handheld. And it's amazing because the benefit is it's 100% compatible.
Yep.
You know, there's no issues and there's no lag. It's not doing any emulation whatsoever. It's simply just allowing you to play it like a console, which is pretty cool.
Exactly. And those were like the first like systems for the Game Boy system that people made, but then you also have something like this.
Like clone systems, emulation.
System. Yeah, so this is one dedicated system, the Retron SQ.
Yes.
So you can play your games on here. It comes with a dedicated controller as well. Very similar to the Super Nintendo controller, obviously, because that's the preferred controller for that system.
But this is cool because, you know, when this came out, it originally only really did a lot of Game Boy Color.
That's right. It was like a testing phase for Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, it actually says beta on my box. And since the release of this, they've put out a bunch of different firmwares and made that much better. So this is a good option for people if they want something small and compact.
Definitely, and it's a cheaper option as well.
Absolutely,
so
for sure.
So, and then if you want to go a little bit more expensive, you got this system here.
Yeah, and you know, when the Analog Pocket came out, this was considered sort of like the holy grail item for that, right?
Yeah.
Because they're going for FPGA, zero latency, 100% compatibility, just kind of the ultimate sort of clone system. And a lot of people love this, myself included.
And it also comes with a dock station, so you can use it as a base system to play on your television.
So yeah, actually for a lot of this footage that you guys are going to see in this video, we use this with a dock to basically capture. It was just kind of easier to do that. We're using the real cartridges, but actually using this device here. So
yeah, but I would like to ask people, like, if you have an analog, do you take it outside? Because I don't take mine outside the house.
Well, it is expensive.
Yeah, very expensive.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. And then the other thing we want to mention too, and this is one of the first systems I actually got, was the Retron 5.
Retron 5, yeah, definitely was a system that, you know, you could play the Game Boy Advance games in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people forget because, you know, probably a lot of people buy this because, oh, you want to play Super Nintendo games, NES games, Genesis games, but they forget that front slot there will play a lot of Game Boy Advance games. It's not perfect, and frankly, the controller sucks.
Yes, the controller is like almost a toss with that. Just plug your own controller in it.
You use your own controller, but we want to mention it because if I run into somebody who is a casual gamer and they're looking for something just to play a bunch of systems fairly easily, this is a pretty easy recommend. It's not the best, but it does it well, and I use it for years. Yeah, it'll give you a good casual experience, I would say. So, yeah, absolutely.
We also wanted to mention the Game Boy Micro. Now, it is a cool system. It is the most expensive out of the lot if you're looking for a Game Boy Advance system. One of the caveats with the system is it doesn't play Game Boy Color or Game Boy games, so it's not backwards compatible like the other systems are.
Yeah, but it does have a cool feature where it supported faceplates, almost like the Xbox 360.
Oh, yeah.
And they also brought back the headphone jack. One of the downsides of, as you mentioned, it's kind of expensive, and it came out at the end of the life, and I don't think it sold as well as maybe they had hoped. So
Yeah, it did not.
Neither of us actually have one.
Nope.
We almost forgot about it for this video, to be quite honest,
Yeah.
because I don't really think about it very often. You know what I mean? But it is out there, and people do love it.
Yeah. Now, there are a lot of different variations of a Game Boy Advance system. My favorite is the King of Fighters EX. I had a hard time getting this one, and I'm so happy it's one of my holy grails. But just to let you guys know, there are all kind of different versions out there, so be on the lookout for them if you're going to collect for this system.
Yeah, there's a really great website for that, consolevariations.com.
Yeah.
It's a website you will get lost in, and also very jealous. Your wallet will start to cry as you look at that site, but it's really fun to check out. Now let's go ahead and talk some accessories, and there are more of them than you would expect, especially when hanging out with this dude.
Yeah, so the plug.
Yeah, we need to talk about the power supply. So it's a little bit unique, especially if you are a modern gamer, because it doesn't use a standard USB cable. It's got this kind of weird square-ish plug here that's got a little round bump on it, so that you put it in the right way. The good news is they seem to be fairly well built. I have 2 of them here. I've used them for years.
Right.
And they continue to use them through the original DS, which is nice.
Right.
And specifically, we're talking about the SP because the original used normal batteries.
Yes.
But the good news is that while the SP batteries can fail over time, they're usually really easy to replace. They're usually really cheap.
Yeah, they have better batteries built now for you, so you can replace them easy. But just to let you guys know, if you do have an SP or you buy a used one, make sure you check that battery, because if there's some kind of bulge in it, you definitely want to replace it, because you just don't want that thing to blow up while it's in the system and possibly damage it. So just be aware of that. All right, so the first accessory we want to talk about is the e-reader. Now, the e-reader, people had mixed feelings about it when it first came out.
It's a trip.
It is.
Who was thinking of this? Whose idea was this? This is so weird.
It's like a physical way to add DLC to your games back in the day. Like,
and in the the spirit of Pokemon card collecting, I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, I thought it was cool at first because you could add more levels to Super Mario Brothers 3, which was awesome. Those levels are pretty cool, but people just seem like they lost interest in it because they don't like sliding the cards back and forth, and you got to have you can lose the cards easily and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
We have a lot of them here, and I keep them like where I don't lose them pretty much. But I do have access to them. I just don't know if a lot of people will like it. But I think it's a cool idea.
It is for sure. I mean, it's definitely a cool part of the Game Boy Advance history,
right?
That a lot of people kind of forgot about.
It sure is. Now, if you wanted to play your games with other people, this was a cool option. They did have a wireless adapter, for the system.
That came with my copy of Fire Red.
Really?
Yeah, and I had no idea. Of course, I didn't have anybody at work to play with, but it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was cool, and I thought a lot of more people would have this, but more people had the cords because I guess this thing wasn't that strong. So if something jumped in front of you, or just you walked far enough from somebody else, you would lose connection, and you just don't want to lose connection playing these games like that, because starting over was annoying. But this was a good idea. It didn't always work as well as it should have.
Yeah, interesting.
All right, so next we have the GameCube cord. So this is how you would plug your Game Boy Advance system to your GameCube.
I forgot all about that.
Yeah, dude.
I know.
And one of the games was awesome was Zelda 4 Swords. You could play on there.
Yeah.
So
there was also a Pac-Man. It was the Pac-Man Versus, right?
That's right. That one's, a lot of people don't know about that game, too.
Yeah.
Very awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then you could play games like Final Fantasy, Crystal Chronicles. No, was it Crystal Chronicles or something like that? I can't remember.
Crystal something. I do remember.
Crystal something.
Yeah.
Another game I'm trying to remember that you could play with this. Because I'm trying to remember everything almost.
To be honest, it's as cool as this was, did you use it very often? I think I used it once.
Maybe once or twice, like how you gotta have friends over, obviously, that play those 4-player games.
Again, it wasn't just as simple as sitting down. You had to really think about it and plan and plug stuff in and all that sort of stuff, and everyone had to have it's a cool idea for sure.
Definitely. And then we can move to the cords, the connecting cords. So you would link up two Game Boy systems together to play with someone.
Right.
Usually games you can play up to 4 players. This one right here is made by Pelican. If anybody remembers Pelican. So you can have 2 players play together on this one. So you were lucky to have 2 people play these things. You got 4 people. That was awesome. Then you have a kind of a generic one here. I don't know what name brand this one is, but there was a lot of different cords out there for people to choose from.
I think it makes sense because people did do this.
Right.
I mean, of all the things we've kind of talked about as far as accessories, this was used all the time, you know.
But I would honestly recommend for people to go with the Nintendo brand or any updated brand now that they make, you know, so for like good connections, I would say. All right, so another accessory which was awesome was this speaker system. Yeah, this is very cool. Like it turned it up pretty much.
I bet it did. This is awesome. I know, that's cool.
So definitely one of my favorite accessories because the system was kind of like known to be like quiet or not quiet, but just not as loud as it could be.
Right,
and this helped out a lot. So good to have on the system, especially with a game that had a good soundtrack.
Yeah.
Now, the next thing here is one of the more impressive things about the Game Boy Advance system, that it could play like movie games. So here,
I completely forgot it did this too.
yeah, they had full movies on there like Shrek.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember everything. Shark's Tale maybe. This is Dragon Ball GT. It would give you around 2 episodes for certain series. Was it worth it? You know, it was kind of cool just to know it could play like movies and stuff like that. But I wish they had a better selection at the time, and they were kind of expensive too. So,
yeah,
you know.
I can imagine. Of course, you know, it reminds me of my PSP and UMD movies, right? You know, well, I guess this is before that, but still, it's like, you know, it points to the fact that you did want to every once in a while watch entertainment on the go, you know, while you're on the bus or whatever. Yeah, totally. That's fine. I wish I would have bought some of those. All right, so now let's take a look at some Game Boy Advance games that we recommend. But right off the bat, we do need to say that, you know, we could have did this video and it would be 2 hours long and we'd never even like hit, you know, everything we would want to show.
Exactly, and we talked about a lot of these games before in past videos, like Hidden Gems and stuff like that. So, you know, we hoping you guys know about the common games like Mario, Zelda, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about the Game Boy Advance is that, man, there are literally hundreds of amazing games out there. And, you know, a lot of people have seen the top 10 lists, the top 20 lists. We love those games too.
Yep.
We're going to go a little bit deeper in this video and pick out some games that you may or may not have heard of. As far as prices go, again, it's kind of all over the place. You are a collector who typically goes for in-box with manual.
Yeah.
And that is definitely way more expensive because those boxes were made of cardboard and often destroyed.
Right, but it is cool to get, you know, just a cart only because obviously you want to play the game. That's the main important part.
That's how I collect.
But if you want your stuff uniform, you know, there's another way to do that as well.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you know, the majority of my Game Boy Advance collection is loose cart. And I do that because I want to save some money. But thankfully, there are solutions out there. You can go on Etsy, you can buy some of these, you know, these pre-made ones. I love mini box gaming. Yep. and a lot of that stuff you'll see in this video is exactly that, they're just slightly a little bit bigger than the cartridges themselves. Yeah, it's cool. So we want to mention that you have options here.
Yeah, exactly. So don't feel like you have to like get everything in a box. You know, make your collection the way you want it. And I think the cheaper option is to do it that way if you want it uniform.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't you go first?
All right, so start off strong here. We got Black Belt Challenge for the Game Boy Advance. This is a fighting game. And it's actually pretty fun. You know, you don't have to do all the crazy motions. Usually the motions in this game is like down, down, attack and things. You can do like projectiles, things like that. That's super moves. It's a very well done game, I would say. A lot of people don't know about it, but it is out there.
Okay, I didn't know about it. I had no idea. Here's another game that you told me about, and now I do own. That is CT Special Forces.
Yes.
So this is a really fun run and gun game on the Game Boy Advance. And again, it's just a game that I never would have probably given the time of day because I never heard of it, but it's really fun.
Yeah.
I dig it.
Very similar to Metal Slug, kind of.
Yes.
And next game here is Turok Evolution. Oh my God. This is a running gun shooter. That is 2 players if you have 2 games. But man, this one is definitely like Metal Slug in a way.
When you told me that this Turok game was running gun, I was like, you know, like a 2D platforming. Really?
Yeah.
I had no idea. Well, here is a bit of a surprise too. I've talked about this in other videos. This is Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. And this is a really good beat 'em up. You play as Anakin or Obi-Wan.
Yep.
And going through and just hacking down droids and
it's really cool because you level up in the game. You use your force powers. You can throw projectiles at enemies, pull them towards you, do combinations. It's a great time.
The animation looks really good. This is a really good Star Wars game that not a lot of people know about.
Yeah. Got overlooked for its console counterpart versions.
Right.
Next one here is a Medal of Honor Infiltrator. This game is a top-down like action game. It's so much fun. It kind of looks like a Zelda game, but you obviously have guns and things like that. And this one is great. It even has like a cinematic movie in the intro, like from like cinematics, like a FMV, I would say. Very well put together game that a lot of people overlook. It's a lot of fun. Definitely keep this one on your radar.
Okay. Well, next up is a game that anytime I show on my channel, people always would jump into the comments and be like, what is that game? Well, it is Iridian 2. Basically, it's a shoot 'em up, but as you see from this footage here, it is wild. Like, you mentioned that the console is a 32-bit console. Well, yeah, here's the proof. Like, it looks fantastic.
Exactly. And the intro, don't let the intro throw you off. It's a girl picking flowers, but, you know, the ship comes and flies and waves everything. It's awesome, but definitely... The intro will throw people off, but this game is freaking awesome, guys. So yeah, keep your eye out for that one. And now, my next one here, I'm going all out with this one, but we got Invader, another shoot 'em up for the system.
Yeah, I'd never heard of this before. You showed me this. Wow.
Yeah, Invader, oh man, was a tough one to get. It's definitely, I won't say it's worth it now, but there are ways to play the game.
So it's an expensive game.
It's a very expensive game, but there are like repros out there to make it cheaper if you want that physical. But it's definitely one that pushes the limits of the system. You saw it earlier. Dude.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I was very impressed. Okay. Well, next up is a game, another just amazing looking game. I was so happy to get this years ago. That is Astro Boy Omega Factor. This is one of those games that really surprised me when I played it. It's a run and gun game by Treasure. They always make really interesting games.
And it's mixed as a shooter too, like a shoot 'em up as well.
Yeah, it's crazy the amount of variety in here. Now, the warning is that, unlike a lot of Treasure games, there is a little bit of a learning curve with the controls when you first launch it. And that's typical, just because there's so much going on.
Yeah, there's so many options you have, like with attacks and things like that. It's not complicated, but you just got to remember it so you know what you could utilize.
Yeah.
So
yeah, fantastic game. And so, yeah, pick that up if you can.
And my next one is Double Dragon Advance. This is considered by a lot to be the best Double Dragon game ever. And it's crazy because it kind of combines part 1 and 2 together, like a little bit with the gameplay and story. But definitely a great game on the system. Very sought after and very fun.
Okay, cool. Well, next up is a game that probably would show up in a lot of people's top 10 lists. I want to mention it here because I was obsessed with it, and that is Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. When I first got this copy of this game, I was completely just smitten with this game and this charm and its humor. It's just silly fun. It's good feels all around.
Right.
But I love the game itself, the adventure that they go on, the combat system and how it works with the timing and all that stuff. I mean, I was hooked on these games from this moment on. I played this a ton. Loved it.
Right on, right on. And my last one is a very traditional game. A lot of people have heard of it, but it's 2 games in one. This is Bubble Bobble Old and New. Now the old and new, you have the older version on it, which is the arcade version, and you have the new version, which has newer graphics, So if you like the Bubble Bobble series, obviously you know how those games play. Very fun series, definitely worth getting on the system.
Okay. Well, and then my last one, I think is still hopefully a cheap game. It should be, but you never know. And that is Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 on the Game Boy Advance. And the reason why I want to mention this is because, one, I love the Tony Hawk games. They're so much fun. But, on the main consoles, you really think of these as 3D, extreme sports games.
Right.
And this one is completely unique in its style. It's basically top-down or, it's like isometric. You mentioned it kind of reminds you of 720.
Yeah.
It definitely does. And the amazing thing about it is that you can take what you know about Tony Hawk on like the PlayStation 2, the way it controls when it plays, and it maps perfectly to this. Like the learning curve isn't very high, and it's almost as fun.
Right on.
I love this game. So anytime somebody mentions Tony Hawk, I'm like, have you played it on the Game Boy Advance? You'd be blown away.
Yeah, man. So also too, guys, we want to talk about emulation for the system.
Yep.
Now, actually, I used to emulate before I even got into the system, because, I didn't have a lot of money to buy games at the time, so that was my way of playing them. And you can still do that to this day and play them in high quality if these games are too expensive for you or you just don't have access like that.
Yeah, or you just kind of want to browse through the catalog like I do and sort of just try stuff out maybe before you go out and spend the hard money on some of these games.
Demo it yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing is that, when I carry around my Steam Deck, it emulates these so easily.
Right.
Also, too, there are things like EverDrives. There is an
Yes.
EverDrive for the Game Boy Advance to go that route if you want to. And we like mentioning to that because we do that ourselves.
Yes.
We emulate when it's often easier to do or more convenient.
Exactly.
So, but dude, there are
There's so many games
thousands
out there,
of them.
and we could have went over a lot of the games in this video, but we just picked out certain ones just to keep
we
it flowing
looked
for
through
you
our
guys.
collections, and it was like, oh man, we got to mention that, because like one really close to my heart is, Metroid Zero Mission, but I feel like I talk about that game all the time.
Yeah, Metroid Zero Mission is an awesome game. I'm more of a Fusion guy.
Yeah. We've had this conversation
Yeah.
before too. I know it's only because with that red SP,
Yes.
I had the game, I played and beat the game. It's that first memory for me. You know what I mean? But yeah, so let us know down in the comments below. I mean, what games do you recommend people pick up day one if they're gonna jump in here? There's so many options.
It's a fun system to collect for, and there's a lot of games out there. Like you're gonna enjoy it. And I don't know if we mentioned it earlier. Just one more thing is that the Game Boy Advance is actually a 32-bit system.
Yes,
so
I know that's the thing is that it continues to surprise you, like with some of the 3D games that it did on there, some of the racing games.
Exactly, and the potential it had to certain games. So yeah.
All right, buddy. Where can people find you on the internet?
The Radical One, come checking me out. I appreciate it. I hit 100K. I always have to mention that now.
Yeah, heck
It's like, wait, no. But I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, and I should also mention too is that Reggie is a big Game Boy Advance collector, specifically in the box, and so often your pickups videos on your channel are those.
Yep.
And so it's a real insight into like kind of like some more of these kind of hidden gems people don't know about. So, all right, guys, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Take care.